Hi, I'm Diane Bassett, and I'm a professional dog trainer. I've been training dogs since 1988, and I've rescued and helped to rehome dozens of dogs. I've raised 12 service dogs and guide dogs in the US, and I've taught private clients and group training classes, both out in the community and at several animal shelters in the US. I could train your dog, but the reality is that you need to learn to train your dog because training requires knowledge and skill that you need to maintain the training anyway. So here I am, prepared to teach you how to train your dog. And loving your dog is not enough. Every dog deserves to be gently and skillfully trained in order to be successful in the world that we live in today. So I want to ask you to take your immediate training goal and put it aside for a moment, because we're going to get to that later. But I want you to learn these fundamental principles of training. I am giving you a toolbox. And if you learn this, you will become a skilled troubleshooter and you will be on your way with a little help from me to being able to train almost anything. So my purpose in this video is to give you the foundational info, but I do have more help to give you in the form of one-on-one consulting for your specific situation, as well as training plans for the basic manners, behaviors that every dog should know to be a well-mannered dog in your household. All I ask of you in return is that you financially support the dog shelter listed in the description of this video. I am doing this education for you as my way of creating more financial support for the shelter. And I, of course, want to help you and your dog be happy with each other. Okay, let's get started. We use methods that are called positive reinforcement methods. You may have heard the term clicker training. I teach clicker training, and I'll explain what that is. But basically, it's based on an area of science called behavioral science. And the subset of this is called operant conditioning. We also use a little bit of classical conditioning, but I just want to reassure you that this is based on science and it works. So here we go. What is reinforcement? Reinforcement is a consequence to a behavior that is likely to make the animal offer more of that behavior. So reinforcement increases the frequency of that behavior. It increases the likelihood that the behavior will happen again. And punishment is the opposite. Punishment is intended to decrease the likelihood that that behavior will happen again. Now, before you think that we're going to be dealing with your unwanted behaviors using punishment, let me beg you to learn the positive reinforcement way of replacing those unwanted behaviors with wanted behaviors. There are problems with punishment. Punishment is very, very complicated to use correctly, and it can really easily ruin your relationship with your dog, and it can create a dog who is afraid to try and offer you behaviors. So when a dog is wrong, we just fail to reinforce, and instead we work with them to reinforce the heck out of the behaviors we do want. And pretty soon those behaviors become strong. It's like building a muscle. Those behaviors become strong and the unwanted behaviors fade because we're making sure they don't get reinforced. Okay, that's the basis. So I want to also mention that you may have heard, that you have to dominate your dog, or you have to be the alpha wolf, or you have to be intimidating, or your dog has to respect you. I want to reassure you that that is not the case. These methods are the same methods that a zookeeper uses to train a tiger to lay down in its cage and allow its tail to be shaved while we draw blood from it. Trust me, we don't have to dominate the tiger. So these are the same methods that are used, and they're used humanely, they're used gently, and they're used skillfully. And that's what I'm here to help you with. I want you to understand them, and I want to help you learn to use them skillfully. This is a really big topic. We are scratching the surface in this video. So there's a lot to learn. I'm hoping to wet your whistle and hopefully motivate you to really want to dive in and learn more. Okay, so we talked about punishment. And I just want you to know, and please write this down, put it on your fridge, tattoo it on your arm. At any moment, your dog is doing the best she can, given the training she's had and the environment that she's in at the moment. So we trainers have to constantly observe and evaluate what went well and what didn't and what needs more work. So if our dog wasn't successful in a certain situation, then it's either because we haven't trained enough, we haven't trained in that situation. There can be some other factors called trigger stacking, which is another topic. But just know that your dog is not being stubborn. Just because she was successful doing this in one environment does not mean that she's able to do it in this environment yet. So let's have that understanding and have a lot more compassion and empathy for our learner. Okay, now we're going to talk about what reinforcing is. So I said a minute ago that when a behavior happens and there is a positive consequence, a reinforcing consequence that the animal wants to work for, a reward that the animal is willing to work for, the likelihood of that behavior being offered again is high. So we want to use that knowledge and we want to put it to our good use. So we want to have rewards, right? And we want to deliver them in a timely manner. So the dog gets to decide what's rewarding and what isn't. So despite how much those fancy treats cost, if your dog doesn't love them, the dog gets to decide. I would like you to choose 5 levels of food rewards that have different levels of value. So the low level might be just the plain kibble that your dog gets for food. I'm going to show you what ours looks like. This, can you see how small that is? It's the size of a small pea and it's skinny. So this is, these are the small breed kibbles. So you can buy the small breed food for your dog and just figure out how much you need to give your dog based on its weight. But these are great for rewards, and you can take part of your dog's meal and deliver it throughout the day using training sessions without putting too many calories into your dog. So we like kibble, that's kind of the low level reward. And then there might be, I might take some kibble and mix it with some hot dog or something to make it infused with that flavor. And then, you might have different levels. Little bits of cheddar cheese might be on the top of your dog's list. You might take a chicken breast and boil it and cut it up into tiny pieces. Obviously, you would keep those in the fridge and pull them out when it's training time. So you need to think through a hierarchy of value rewards, because when you're asking more of your dog, when you're asking your dog to work in a more distracting setting, for example, you need the big guns. Your little kibble is not going to cut it in that case. You're competing in that environment with a lot of stuff that's trying to pull your dog's attention. So you need this hierarchy of rewards. So food is a great motivator. Some people will say, well, my dog isn't food motivated. And in that case, I encourage you to keep trying to find something that does motivate your food there. But let's talk about other forms of reward. Again, some dogs are ball crazy. So pulling out a ball and having a play session after a little training session is a reward, or after an instance. When I say an instance, it's like if I'm going to ask my dog to do something 10 times in a training session, then each instance is one instance. Okay, so your dog might be ball crazy, so you might have a special ball that you reserve for training. Or other foods, tug toys. My dog loves to play tug, so sometimes when we're out in public, I will have brought a little fluffy tug toy that we only use in training, and I'll pull it out and we'll tug, and he just loves that. So it doesn't always have to be food, but food is powerful. Please know that the environment is also reinforcing, and it can work against you. So we have to do as much as we can to control and manage our environment. And while we're working on certain behaviors, that can be difficult, but it's necessary. So for example, if I have a dog who is anxious and scared and aggressive towards other dogs, when my dog sees that other dog across the street, it's going to bark and lunge and be upset. Well, how would that be reinforcing for your dog? When it barks, that owner and that dog might hurry off. And that dog, which makes your dog anxious, disappears. That feels better for your dog. That trigger has now moved away. That is reinforcing. So every time we let that happen out in public, we are reinforcing that behavior. And there's different ways that we work with turning that issue around. But I just want to give you an example of how the environment can reinforce that. In your household, if you leave your trash unattended, your dog might find something in there that would be fun to chew on or to shred up. And there's another way that the environment just reinforced your dog for something you don't really want it to do. If you leave food on the low coffee table and your dog finds it, that environment just reinforced your dog. So you get the idea. So we need to be aware of our reinforcers, and we need to be prepared to reinforce behaviors we want and make sure we're not accidentally reinforcing behaviors that we don't want. Okay, so let's ask ourselves, what behaviors do we want, and what behaviors do we want to replace? What behaviors don't we like? So we want to focus on the behaviors that we want instead and really define what those are, and then break it down into little tiny baby steps so we can figure out how to train for it. And when we think about doing that, we need to know that there are certain aspects, there are 5 aspects of behaviors, 3 of which are probably the most important for you, but I'll tell you all 5. So the most important 3 are what I call the 3 Ds. So there's the distraction level. I don't know if you can hear the cathedral bells out there, sorry. The distraction level in my environment, the distance of the behavior or distance from me, and the duration, the length of time that we're asking for that behavior. And then the other 2 are intensity and speed, and those may or may not apply to behaviors that you're working on. So we'll just, for the sake of argument, focus on the top 3, the distraction, duration, and distance, the 3 Ds. Each one of these is like a bar. So you've heard someone say, I'm going to raise the bar and make it harder. Each one of these is a separate bar. So we have to teach our dog how to do a behavior in a very non-distracting environment. And then we make it a little harder and a little harder with a little more distraction. So that bar is raising higher each time. But when we raise the bar on distraction, we lower the bar on the other 2. So for any behavior, you think through what are the criteria for each one of those as you flow through the training plan. I have training plans written for pretty much any behavior you can think of, and I can help you with that. But I want to explain that we systematically and very analytically are conscious about which one of these we're working on, and we don't combine difficulty raising on more than one at once. Humans are very bad at that. We ask too much of our dogs. We combine a lot of them at once, and that's a mistake. So you're going to need a training plan for every behavior that you want to train, and I can help you with that. So you want to have short 5-minute training sessions, and in each training session, I'm making a video. In each training session, you need to know what your goal is in that particular session. Am I working on duration? Am I working on distance? Which one am I moving? And have I dropped the others appropriately for this training session? Not knowing what your criteria is for this training session is another huge mistake that beginners make. They kind of wing it. I'm begging you not to do that. You need a training plan, and you want to follow your training plan. And the other most common mistake that people make is that they don't structure their training sessions such that they are reinforcing frequently. You want a high rate of reinforcement in each of your training plans. That keeps it fun for the dog, that keeps them engaged. Otherwise they get bored, or this just isn't fun for them. So I'm going to review those again. The top 3 mistakes that beginners make are they don't reinforce often enough. They haven't set it up so that they're reinforcing frequently. They aren't clear on what their criteria are for this training session. And then they are not clicking right when the behavior happens. They're late with their click, and the timing of their click is off. So keep those in mind. We're going to focus on those as we try to train our dogs. Okay. So we talked about creating baby steps, like a progression of how we get from the very beginning to the end. This is called shaping. And so we're going to shape a behavior from the little baby steps to the final version. And that's what makes it accessible and easy for these dogs. And there are ways to move them from one step to another. I can speak with you about that in person. It's a bit of a nuanced conversation depending on what behavior we're training. And now I want to talk about the clicker and what a behavior marker is. We're almost done, so stay with me. We only have a few more minutes. So we've talked about clicking and treating. So here's the way this works. A behavior happens. We add a behavior, what's called a behavior marker is a scientific term, and then we follow with a reward. So a behavior marker is any unique sound that we deliver at the exact moment of the desired behavior, and then we quickly follow with the reward. So I'm going to just use the term click because it's a quick term, but it doesn't have to be a click. So the behavior marker or the click becomes a confirmation for your dog that what he just did, when you made that sound, what he did was good and is causing you to give him a reward. So you can imagine that this is very helpful and exciting for him. And he's trying to figure out, what do I have to do to make you click? We want that. So the timing of the click becomes very important. So the question becomes, what will you choose as your marker? So let's talk about your options. You've got lots of options. You've probably, seen these little clickers. This one says dog training with Diane. It's probably backwards for you. These are loud, and I like these for long distance work, but a lot of dogs, this sound is really too sharp for their little ears. And I'm in, an office here, and I'm just gonna click this. It's pretty loud. It's pretty loud. And my dog's probably gonna show up to get his reward. Anytime you click, you have to reward. So even if you made a mistake, you have to deliver a reward. There you go. And I have figured out how to click with my mouth, which is better. Why? I always have it available, right? I don't have to worry about the timing. If my dog does something that I want to mark and then reinforce, I don't have to worry about, oh shoot, where's my clicker? I got my mouth, so here I go. And now my dog is coming back for another reward. There you go, babe. So not everybody can do that. It's kind of a side of the mouth, giddy up horse sound. If that's not easy for you to do, you can choose something else. It needs to be loud enough for the dog to hear across the room. So some people try to go, that's not loud enough. That's not gonna work. So if you can't make that louder giddy up horse click, choose a sound or a word. And this has to be a sound or a word that you do not use in the other course of your life. I don't like saying yes, because why? You use that word all the time, right? You use it in the course of conversation. So choose something totally different. Choose something like, I never use the word bingo in my regular life, so I might say bingo, or you can just say zip. Zip, just like zip, whatever, right? Choose a sound, and that is gonna be your marker forevermore. And I now want to remind you that this sound does not make that behavior happen. It's not a command. It's not a cue. It's an, as the behavior happens, acknowledgement that, ooh, that's one of the many good behaviors I'm looking for from you. Thank you. And now I'm going to give you a reward. And you can see how the dog is connecting the dots between what he just did and the fact that that reward is happening. So you want your dog to be clear on why it's getting rewarded. And the purpose of that behavior marker is to give that clarity. And once you've been working with your dog in this way for a while, your dog will start to learn more quickly. It's really great. We call this being clicker savvy. The dog, it's like a light bulb goes on when you're consistent in how you implement this. And all of a sudden your dog is excited about training and trying to get you to click and is enthusiastic about figuring out what you want next. And That's what we want. It's fun for you, it's fun for the dog, and you make a lot of progress. Okay, I think we're going to end it here. I want to remind you that I have training plans for, pretty much any behavior you can think of, and I'm willing to work with you one-on-one and coach you and help guide you. But this is the foundation. This is what you need to understand before we talk about your specific situation, okay? I need you to understand how this all works. So what are your next steps? I want you to describe and make a list of all of the behaviors that you would ideally like your dog to be able to do. I'm going to give you some examples. You might say, when we go for a walk, my dog doesn't pull hard on the leash and he walks with a loose leash by my side when I signal him to do so. And when he sees another dog, we are able to walk past it at a distance of 15 feet without him getting upset and lunging and barking. That would be a description of several behaviors in there that we would work on. Here's another one. When it's time to get in and out of my car, my dog waits for a cue. He doesn't rush in and rush out. And he doesn't rush out of the car and run off without permission. There you go. Here's another one. My dog comes to me when I call him the first time, even at the dog park. There you go. So I want you to make a list of the behaviors that you want. And I invite you to contact me to set up a call where we can discuss your training goals and get the right training plans into your hands and make sure the shelter's getting the support that it needs. And I hope you'll take this on. I hope you will embrace learning how to train your dog. It's really fun. It's not difficult once you understand how to implement these simple concepts. So I'd love to work with you.